Welcome back, everybody, to the College Football Payoff podcast, episode 5. We got week 7 here, and a lot has happened today so far. We want to jump into a little bit of news before we recap and get into our picks. The big one coming out, Nick Saban testing positive for COVID. I don't want to downplay COVID. I think it's terrible, and you can hate Nick Saban all you want, but it's tough to lose. To have this happen to a high-profile coach, probably the most prolific coach in college football history, ahead of a huge top 3 matchup this weekend. We talked about it a little bit before we got on, and I don't think that they play this game just because they want to have Saban coaching. I think Alabama does whatever they can not to play the game.
They're going to have a couple players test positive on purpose.
Yeah,
potentially.
I have a feeling something crazy is going to happen, but it's just not going to be the same game without Saban at the helm. I didn't have them on the card to begin with, so I wasn't going to bet it regardless.
Yeah, no changes for me. Actually, before this came out, I wasn't going to give it out, but I was thinking about a little over teaser with Alabama. So it would have been Alabama straight up and over 50.
Right.
I kind of like those numbers there, but now without Saban, I'm unsure. And especially now they're without Saban, and they fired their defensive coordinator last week after the Ole Miss game. That was just a ridiculous performance by them on defense in a bad sense. So they're going to be down their head coach, their D coordinator, and only have Steve Sarkisian at the helm this week.
Yeah, I'm staying away. I want the game to be played, but at the same time, I don't want it to be without Saban. Give Bama any kind of leeway as to say, "Oh, we didn't have Nick Saban." I would like to see them kind of push this game back if they could, but I don't know if you can in the atmosphere that they have in college football right now. So that's the big news coming out today. Couple that along with, 3 games have been postponed, 2 of them in the SEC.
Yeah, Florida and being canceled is a big L this week. Right after Dan Mullen started to say that they needed the swamp packed with 90,000 fans.
That was ridiculous of them to say that. I know Florida in the NFL, they I think it might have been the Dolphins or maybe the Jaguars. One of the Florida teams said they can have full capacity. I think the governor said something about 60,000 was allowed.
And on top of that, let's look back to last week because that's a consensus pick that we both had that actually lost outright in Florida. What is Will Muschamp doing after the game, blaming the Texas A&M crowd as being a big factor in the game? I think the big factor in your game was that your defense and most noticeably your secondary is atrocious right now. That's why when we discussed last week, I still had Alabama as the best team in the SEC. But I had high hopes for this Florida team. If they can't figure out this defense, it's going to be a long season for them and a disappointing one.
Yeah, I had high hopes for them too. I said they were going to be the best team in the SEC. They were going to win it, and now it's wide open again.
Kellen Mond was not that good.
No,
so I couldn't. Watching that game made me so mad last week.
Yep, me too. And Georgia, because before I even get into Georgia, that was one of the first games on. So starting my day off with that was brutal.
Yeah.
And then watching the Georgia game, and I think Georgia is going to be a really good team. They look way better without Jake Fromm at quarterback. So even this week, I would have thought Georgia probably would have won against Bama. I would have taken Georgia to win the game, not played any spread or anything like that, but Georgia probably I would take to win against Bama. I
was looking that way just because I like how their defense has been playing, but I still don't trust Stetson Bennett at quarterback. He's played pretty well so far this season, but we know that Bama's just a different animal. So I would have probably leaned Alabama, but now without them, I'm completely off the game.
Yep. So the SEC taking a turn this week. A few games missing, and then of course Nick Saban news. Another game that was postponed is Oklahoma State Baylor. Oklahoma State's 7th in the coaches poll. So you got some top 10 teams that are not playing this week, but we still got a good slate and some pretty full cards between you and I. So let's recap what happened last week. I had a really good week last week, and Kansas State is my favorite team of all time. I love Kansas State so much. The money line money maker is now 3-1. We're on a 2-week winning streak. thanks to Kansas State winning. They were plus 8.5 point underdogs and plus 270 on the money line. That was a fun game to watch. The other wins for me were South Carolina minus 13, the over 67.5 in the Bama game, and Georgia minus 12. And then the two losses, which I think we found a little trend here. Two losses were Mississippi State plus 2.5. They only scored 2 points in the entire game. And Florida minus 6.5. We both played those games together, and we are now 1-4 when we pick together on the season. So I think it's officially time to say whatever we agree on.
Fade when we agree.
You need to go the opposite way.
Yeah,
so,
and Mississippi State was just so embarrassing last week. That Costello, yeah, he doesn't even deserve to be called the right name anymore. He had 5 picks against Kentucky.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
What?
I mean, it was a weird game. And
yeah,
2.5 is.
They were plus 2.5. Only scored 2 points. I'm off Mississippi State until further notice. I'll let that be known. Yeah, but last week, Big Country 1-4. Terrible week. Terrible performance on the pod. So far over this time, I've given you a record of 6-17 after doing the calculations today. So I'll hereby declare it okay to fade Big Country for the next couple of weeks if you feel comfortable. The trends are definitely in that direction. But I must say, as any gambler would say, I'm still profitable this year on my full card. If you are listening to the show and you want the full card, which has been over 500 every week, just DM me on Twitter. I'll give it to you for free. I'm not even going to charge anything. At Big Country Bets. I'm ashamed of my performance on the pod, so I got 6 picks for you this week. Hopefully we bounce back.
Yeah, we both have 6 picks, and luckily no games together. So we got 12 games. It's going to be a pretty big show.
No agreements and no disagreements. So we got 12 picks for you here. Let's get into it.
All right. I'm going to start it off then. And we'll start with the nation's number 1 team, Clemson. They are 27-point favorites. They're playing at Georgia Tech. The over-under is set at 64. And, in the past I've said I don't like these big spread games. I think a lot can happen. You never know what defense shows up, this and that, a lot of intangibles. But I think with this one, I kind of have to play it. I think, Clemson is really good. I mean, they are really good. Last week when they played Miami, a lot of people thought that that was a good matchup. Miami's defense, they're young, they were rising, they looked like a good solid squad going up against Clemson. It was looking like Trevor Lawrence was going to have an actual test on his hands. But Clemson decided to shit on that notion, and they put up an easy 42-17 beating on Miami. Right now, in my opinion, Clemson is the only team that has shown absolute dominance this season and will continue that play against Georgia Tech, against a team that still seems to be looking to find it on both sides of the ball. Everyone wants to talk Trevor Lawrence when it comes to Clemson, and I think he will have a good game. I think he'll, it's Trevor Lawrence. He continues to put up good games, but I think in this one, it's going to come down to the running game. They're going to run the ball to open up Trevor Lawrence, and Travis Etienne is going to have an absolute field day against Georgia Tech. They have given up over 240 yards in 2 of their last 3 games, and in those 3 games, they've given up 7 touchdowns. Now, another thing with Georgia Tech is how undisciplined they are. And against the best team in the nation, you cannot have stupid penalties or dumb mistakes or blown coverages or anything like that. I think Georgia Tech commits too many penalties, and also their special teams has just been absolutely atrocious. Georgia Tech's going to have to deal with that top 10 rushing defense in Clemson as well. So it's not just offense when you're talking about Clemson, it is also the defense. Clemson's given up an average of 89.8 yards on the ground per game. And, we've seen that the passing game at Georgia Tech needs a lot of work. Sims, he's been very inconsistent. He's thrown interceptions left and right. He's facing a passing defense this week that has the 3rd most interceptions in the conference. And Clemson, by the end of this game, they're going to be playing 3rd stringers and playing with a huge lead. They are 7-1-1 against the spread in their last 9 October games and 10-2 against the spread in their last 12 as road favorites. Georgia, on the other hand, 2-9 against the spread in their last 11 home games and 1-7 against the spread in their last 8 versus a team with a winning record. Give me Clemson minus 27 in this one. Georgia
Tech really put a beat down on Louisville last week.
Yeah.
That was kind of embarrassing by Scott Satterfield out in Louisville. And we'll get to that later in the pod, but I'm going to take my first pick of the week down to Tulane, down to Louisiana, but we're actually going to go with the road favorite here, SMU. SMU's off a bye. Last time we saw them play, they edged out Memphis, a really good, high-productive offense in Memphis, 30-27. They're currently 5th in scoring in the FBS, 44 points a game. It's a high-octane offense. Shane Buechele, their quarterback, has a 69% completion rating. Nice, first off, on the 69% completion rating. But he also has 1,326 yards, 10 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. So he's been playing out of his mind this year. They did lose their top receiver, Robertson, but them coming off a bye, they had a week to recalibrate the offense and to tweak, what they can do with him missing. They have Rice, Gray, and Ganson as their 2, 3, and 4 best wide receivers, and they combined for almost 700 yards receiving this year. They also have the 23rd best scoring defense in the country. I think these all factors outweigh the talent that Tulane brings to the table. Tulane was +5 on the turnover margin last week against Houston and lost the game by 17, 18 points, I think. How do you win the turnover margin? You have 5 turnovers more than the other team.
It's a head scratcher.
Pardon me. The other team has 5 more turnovers than you.
Right.
And you can't take advantage of this. I mean, it was just an embarrassing performance. They're giving up 271 yards per game passing. That's an average. And you just have to remember that one of those games they played is against Navy. So in reality, they're giving up close to 350 a game passing through the air. Houston wanted to give them the game, and they wouldn't take it. And their offense is really low production. They're 69th out of 76 in passing offense this year. SMU showed that they're resilient on defense by holding a highly, highly productive Memphis offense to only 27 points 2 weeks ago. I expect them to recalibrate and get healthy over that bye week they had. Give me SMU -7.
SMU -7. All right.
Friday night game.
I was just about to throw that out there. We got a Friday night game going. We wanted to stay away from these Thursday night games, though, huh?
Yeah, nothing too attractive on the Thursday night slate this week. That's for sure.
All right. So we got one each. I'm going to go next with this Kentucky at Tennessee. Tennessee is a 6-point favorite. Over/under set at 46. Tennessee, I think Jarrett Guarantino has a bounce-back game this week. I mean, it was very disappointing last week against Georgia, but again, it's against Georgia, the number 3 ranked team in the nation. So, it's going to happen. I think this is where Tennessee wants to prove that they belong in the conversation of top teams in the SEC. They're not there yet, but they're going on the right path to being considered for those top spots. And I think this game right here is where they need to prove it. Because last week, I mean, they led Georgia at the half 21-17. It just seemed, when you play good teams, those teams seem to have a little more conditioning and they could get going in the second half, and that's where it kind of faltered for Tennessee. They just couldn't keep up with them. Offensive line for Tennessee, which is supposed to be one of their strengths, they didn't have that conditioning to go up against the defensive line for Georgia. But I expect them to have a nice bounce-back week this week and beat up on a Kentucky defensive line that is just not good. All right. And I think Tennessee, they showed well, those offensive linemen did, against South Carolina and Missouri earlier in the season. So they have proven that they're a good core group right there. Expect to see a lot of running in this game. Kentucky, they did win last week. And they're probably feeling a little confidence getting into this one, but I think they fall victim to their surroundings. They're playing at Neyland Stadium, which is kryptonite for the Kentucky Wildcats. In the last 17 times that Kentucky has played there, they have not won a single game. That's rough. You know, if it's like it's like the Steelers coming to Cleveland, they always win in Cleveland. And the Browns just can't win.
Big Ben at least.
Big Ben at least. Kentucky's offense is also a problem. I mean, their starting quarterback, Terry Wilson, he has less than 500 passing yards and only has 2 touchdowns through 3 games. And he's also their leading rusher. Now, when a quarterback is your leading rusher and you don't play for a service academy, that usually spells some kind of question marks and levels of concern on the offensive front. And he accounts for less touchdowns through the air than he does on the ground. That doesn't sound like a quarterback, does it? It sounds more like a running back. You're not going to be able to put together quality scoring games consistently with that formula. I think Guarantino has that bounce-back performance, like I said, and the Wildcats will lose yet again in Neyland because in the last 8 meetings, Kentucky is just 1-7 against the spread, and that includes a 1-5 against the spread record in Tennessee, while Tennessee is 5-1 against the spread. In their last 6, following an against the spread win, I'm taking Tennessee -6 in this one.
I like it, yeah. Jeremy Pruitt's really turning the corner with that program in his 3rd year finally. But I'm going to take the other Friday night game. We're going to go down to Houston, where I'm also taking a road favorite in BYU. This line's at -5 now. I really like BYU for a lot of reasons, and I really want to fade Houston for a lot more reasons. Houston did win last week, like we said earlier, 49-31. Edged out Tulane by 18 points with a -5 turnover differential. I just see no discipline in this Dana Holgorsen team. I'm very familiar with Dana Holgorsen as a coach, being a West Virginia fan, and we appreciate his services, but you know, an average 8-5 team every year isn't what we wanted, and I see Houston going down the same exact path. 3 fumbles in week 1, just not acceptable. 2 picks from the quarterback. Now they were able to surpass, an early 24-7 deficit in which Tulane's defense scored a pick 6 and a fumble 6. So the rest of the game they played relatively well against a low-powered Tulane offense, but BYU this season has been absolutely astounding on all sides of the ball. Offense, defense, and special teams. Currently, they're averaging 550 yards of offensive production a game. Their quarterback, Wilson, has an 81% completion rate. That is ridiculous. I haven't seen a number that high ever, I don't think. He has over 1,200 yards passing, 8 touchdowns, and 1 interception. They're also really strong on the ground. They average over 200 rushing yards a game. And their defense is also allowing only 11 points per game so far. They're 11-5 against the spread in their last 16 road games. They come prepared to win when they travel. Man, Houston, I have a lot of gripe with them. I don't think we have enough game film on them to prove that they're actually a good team like Vegas thinks they are. I think BYU can out-edge them here. Give me BYU. High-powered offense of Zach Wilson. Hopefully they can stop the Houston air raid. I like the 5 points here.
Yeah, going with a couple Friday night games, getting your weekend started, maybe flipping the switch here.
2-0 before Saturday. I'll feel good.
You got to start well before you get into Saturday. I like it. I enjoy that. All right, so we each got 2. I'm going to stick in, let's see, we're going to do Navy at East Carolina. ECU is now a 1-point favorite, over-under set at 58. This line, when I first looked at the game, going up until just before we're recording, actually had Navy as a 2.5-point favorite. So it has switched over to ECU being favored by a point. Now, I was with Navy at -2.5, so obviously I'm going to stick with them here at +1. And, because I had Navy -2.5, why not throw the money line in there as well? Because you have to win in order to cover. So East Carolina, and I don't know why the game flipped. I don't know what Vegas is looking at here, but East Carolina is 1-9 straight up in their last 10 games, and Navy is 6-1 straight up in their last 7. So I'm not sure where the flip came from. I don't know what they're seeing, if someone maybe isn't playing that I don't know about yet.
Yeah.
I didn't see anything when I was looking into this, and it's kind of strengthening my case for Navy. Eastern Carolina they do not play well historically against Navy, and they have given up close to 190 rushing yards per game. So we know what Navy does on offense. They are a running team. If you go up against a defense that gives up that many yards on the ground, typically they'd play offenses who mix in passing. Well, now you're facing a offense that strictly runs the ball. Not a good recipe for a high-scoring win. And it's also not a good recipe for Eastern Carolina. It's going to be a major problem. Navy's going to hold on to that ball too, right? They've held on to the ball an average of 35 minutes a game. Okay, so ECU may have a high-powered offense, but it's not going to mean much if you don't have the ball enough to score, right? Navy's going to wear down that team. Eastern Carolina's defense is going to be tired the entire time. And another big reason to their success with the field position and the time of possession is Navy's ability to convert on third and fourth down. So last week they were 8 of 14 on third downs, and then 4 for 4 on fourth downs. So they can keep drives going. And the longer you keep a high-powered offense on the bench and off the field, the better shot you have at controlling the game and winning the game. It's going to be close, but I really think that the time of possession is going to factor into the Navy pulling out the win on this one. I just don't see Eastern Carolina being able to get into any solid rhythm to be able to put up those big numbers and run away with the game. Navy 4-0 against the spread in their last 4 meetings with Eastern Carolina, 6-0 against the spread against a team with a losing record, and 5-0 against the spread following an against the spread loss, while Eastern Carolina 0-4 against the spread versus teams with a losing record, and 7-20 in their last 27 against the spread as a favorite. So we're going to go Navy +1 and the money line +115. So I guess I could
money line moneymaker.
One of them.
Okay. Oh, we got a second one.
Yeah, I'm getting ballsy this week.
I like
might
that.
do too. So
good.
Moneyline moneymaker number 1, Navy +115 over Eastern Carolina.
Nice. All right, I'm gonna take it to South Carolina. We have a home dog, and I'm gonna take the points this time. I like South Carolina +3 this week. They're playing Auburn. There's a lot that goes into this decision, but let me go through what's wrong with Auburn for this week. So, a little stat for you. Auburn has the 6th worst third down defense in the nation. If you want to survive in the SEC or any conference in college football for that matter, you better be able to get off the field in third down. Auburn shouldn't have won last week. They won on a blown call against Arkansas. Felipe Franks embarrassed them. I like a lot about the South Carolina team. Will Muschamp has a high-powered offense. They're averaging close to 400 yards a game on the ground. And really, they have a workhorse in the backfield. Harris, their running back, 56 carries for 326 yards and 4 touchdowns through 3 games this year. He's averaging over 100 yards rushing. And they have a great true SEC defense. A huge win over Vandy last week. I love South Carolina here. If we look at the numbers, we can see that they're only allowing 96 rushing yards a game. Pretty good in college football to allow under 100 in it on average throughout the season. So what this means is they're going to have to force Bo Nix to throw. Do we trust Bo Nix throwing the ball? Do you?
Absolutely not.
Right.
No.
So I think this is a simple play for me. Take the home dog. Take Will Muschamp, who, if this wasn't a COVID year, he'd probably be coaching for his job. They're off a hot win against Vandy. Their confidence is back up after losing their first 2 to Tennessee and Florida. Give me SC plus the points. I think they bounce back this week.
Yeah. I mean, I like it. I'm not going to play it because I got another Carolina team that I'll get into later. And I don't feel good about taking multiple Carolina teams. It's just a little juju on my end, but I like the pick. It's a good one. All right. We're going to go to Temple, South Florida at Temple. Temple is 10-point favorites, and the over-under is set at 54.5. So USF is a bad team. They're not on Florida State level, which I'll talk about later, but they are pretty bad, and they lost last week to that Eastern Carolina team that I talked about earlier. They've struggled to look like they're a competent squad. Their defense is the black eye of that team. Yeah, they have 4 interceptions, but they only have 2 sacks, and they're both by the same guy, Anthony Greer. So that tells me they do not get to the quarterback enough, and I think that's going to be an issue when they go up against a solid quarterback at Temple, Anthony Russo. UCF, they just don't have the offensive identity, and they can't get pressure on defense. So that points to Temple winning the game. Now, Temple did have to wait an extra 2 weeks to play, so I think you chalk up last week's loss to Navy to rust a little bit. I know you had the stat where those teams that don't, if they're playing their first game or they do well against the spread.
Right.
But I think last week you can attribute that loss to Navy as they're shaking off the rust, they're getting back into it.
Yes.
You have to play games to get ready to go, and if you're not playing leading up to that, it's going to be very tough for a football team. And they did have a chance actually to tie that game late. They had a 2-point conversion that they failed to get, which ultimately led to Navy winning by 2 points. So it's not like they got blown out. They played a good game. It's, a little here and there of practice and fine-tuning things. They win that game. Now, Russo has accounted for 3 touchdowns for his team. He had 1 through the air, 2 on the ground, and he was not sacked at all against Navy. So if Navy can't sack him, how is a UCF team that has only 2 sacks on the year going to sack him? They're not going to get too much pressure on him. And I think he has time back there to make his decisions, make his throws. He's a veteran. He's going to be fine. Okay, he's a solid quarterback. And the Temple defense, they held Navy's rushing attack to 4.2 yards per carry on 60 attempts last week. So, they were tried. 60 rushing attempts, and they only averaged 4.2 yards. Couple that with South Florida still looking for that explosive, elusive starting running back, and they need to find a quarterback as well. Their offense is just not in the right place. It's going to be tough for them to get going against the Owls. Look for Russo and running back Ramon Davis to fuel that offense and roll to a double-digit victory, because UCF is 0-4 against the spread following an against the spread win, and Temple is 6-1 against the spread in their last 7 as home favorites. Temple -10, that's mine.
I just can't forgive Temple. I didn't give it out on the pod, but I had it on my personal card last week, riding with that trend, and I just can't put my faith in them going forward.
I know you have to play with what you got. I understand.
So I'm going to take it down to UAB. I took them either last week or 2 weeks ago, and they're playing for the kids. Was that last week?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago? Yeah, they didn't cover.
What
the hell, UAB? Yeah, it's time to bounce back, UAB. You're at home again, playing Western Kentucky. Western Kentucky is just not good this year. They did beat UAB last year, and they're looking for their 2nd consecutive win this year. They're not going to come close. Like you said earlier in the podcast, when you look at a team's offense and through 3 or 4 games in the season, and their highest passer is also their highest rusher, he's either a freak athlete or there's some red flags on that offense. We're going to go with the latter. There's a lot of red flags in this offense. They're just very young. There's not been a lot of production there. Pogrom, their Western Kentucky's quarterback, through 4 games, has only thrown for 559 yards and 6 touchdowns. And he's also rushed for 225 yards. So I think, it's like he's like a one-man show back there. Pretty simple solution to make them not score points is just to stop him. They're only averaging 19.8 points per game this year. A young Marshall team shut them down, and they're just averaging less than 300 yards per game. I mean, I can't put my faith into this offense, while I can very much put a lot of faith into the UAB's offense, especially at home. Their running back, Spencer Brown, who's also the leading touchdown scorer all-time at UAB, has 450 yards and 5 touchdowns this year. He's averaging over 100 rushing yards a game. This is a team that's a veteran. They don't lose at home. and they're coached really well. I mean, that Lucero at quarterback, 652 yards, 6 touchdowns. Now, the 3 interceptions is kind of shaky, but I really like this guy. He's an IMG grad from Florida. He's going to ball just like everybody from that high school does. They only pump out 4- and 5-star recruits. And to have one of those type of guys at UAB, they're a pretty lucky program. They're going to take full advantage of it. They're gaining over 400 yards of offense a game. Give me UAB minus 13.5 just because they didn't cover for the kids.
This is a principle now.
Yeah, it's a principle. If you don't cover for the kids, you have to redeem yourself next week.
Yep. All right. Okay. I like it. We're going to go ahead and, we talked a lot about Carolina schools, like I said. So why not stick with it? We're going to go with the number 5 ranked North Carolina Tar Heels.
I've never seen. I've seen the Tar Heels ranked number 5 in basketball.
Right.
I've never seen anything like this.
So
before.
believe it or not, they are 5th in the nation right now. I mean, it's probably because Big Ten. There's some other that's all right, but how cool is that to see them ranked 5th? They are 13.5-point favorites against Florida State. This game is being played in Tallahassee. The over/under is 64, and the play is always fade Florida State. Fade Florida State. That should be the only thing I say for you to take this bet is just fade Florida State. But I'm gonna make my case for North Carolina because that's what you got to do. But Florida State's trash. North Carolina is good. Okay, 13.5 is a low number for this game, seeing as Florida State got destroyed last week against Notre Dame. 42-26 they lost. Not to mention their only win on the season is against FCS Jacksonville State, which they were losing at half.
They were down 14-0 at one point in that game, and then 21-7. I mean, if they didn't turn around that ship for that game, their season would have been done.
So Florida State, basically, that tells me Florida State's a FCS school right now.
Yeah, it's really tough to see.
They're just a mess, and it actually sounds like the quarterback they threw in last week, Jordan Travis. I don't know if he's going to be able to play. If he does, he's going to be well under 100%. They were saying that he wasn't able to grip a football at practice.
So who's their other option? Blackman?
Yep.
Yeah. He had like a 20.9 quarterback rating through 3 weeks this year.
Right. They're going to have to go back to James Blackman, who he's average at best.
Yeah. There's a lot of schools in the ACC that wouldn't want him as their own quarterback.
Yeah. And Florida State cannot stop the run either. They're going to go up against probably, you can put an argument up for this, the best running back duo in the nation, Michael Carter and Javonte Williams. They both put up 400-plus yards. I mean, Tar Heels are going to run roughshod all over the Seminoles, and it could be a blowout, an absolute, blowout.
I think it very well can be.
And North Carolina's not just looking to win this game. They're 5th. Top 4 get into that playoff, right? And they know that they have Clemson in there. Okay? So they have to put up a statement to start proving their point. And I think this week is their statement win that they're going to destroy a Florida State team and say, hey, we belong in the college football playoff.
And there very well may be a second spot in the playoff for the ACC this year. I mean, with how bad the Big 12 has been and with how bad, we don't even know what the Big 10 season is going to turn into. They might not be able to get in all 8 of their games. And if you can't play 8 games, even if you're Ohio State, who I know is one of the best teams in the nation, can you truly justify? It
doesn't pass the committee.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, so I really think this is a big game for North Carolina. And plus, I'm always a big Mac Brown fan.
Yep.
I mean, I have a signed ball from him from his days in Texas. My uncle was a radio analyst down there, and so I have a little signed ball from him.
So you gotta stick with
I'm always
old Mac.
riding with Mac Brown.
So yeah, I mean, North Carolina comes out, they're going to put a whooping on Florida State. And did I mention that Florida State is trash? I mean, they're 0-5 against the spread in their last 5 home games, 1-5 against the spread in their last 6 as home underdogs. Meanwhile, North Carolina 4-0 in their last 4 against the spread. Against Florida State, this is going to be an easy win, an easy blowout win, and an easy cover for North Carolina. We're going North Carolina minus 13.5.
Yeah, I'm not going to take it on the pod, but I might tease that down actually on Saturday. All right. I'm going to take it up to South Bend. Now, if you've been listening to the pod through the weeks, I've taken Notre Dame twice on here, and they failed me both times. First one was week 1 when they played Duke. Okay, I can understand that. Maybe you're just shaking a little rust off. But last week, it is true, like you said, they slaughtered Florida State. They did not cover. That hurt me so bad, okay? So, Notre Dame quit scoring with 8.5 minutes left in the third. They called the dogs off that early in the game against Florida State. One, that tells you how bad Florida State is. They thought their number 2s were going to just handle them the whole time, which they did. But they couldn't score any more points. So I never got a cover this year out of Notre Dame.
Do you think that because Notre Dame has basically been giving like the free ride saying, hey, you deserve to be in the playoff in the past because they're not in a conference, do you think that's why they're kind of like they don't feel like they need to put up the big points and blow people out because they're in a conference
now?
Now?
I think they look at their schedule, they have Clemson this year. So, I mean, if they beat Clemson, they're going to get into the playoff.
I still think they need to prove and they need to start, really putting points up because we've seen it to where I think it was last year, maybe 2 years ago, Ohio State won. They covered the spread and they still dropped in rankings.
Yes.
So
yeah,
what's going to be different?
I mean, there's no true science to how the committee thinks.
Exactly.
So, I mean, Notre Dame, you've been killing me this year. You've been playing great. I need one cover. If I might regret taking this. We'll check it back next week. If I go 0 for 3 with Notre Dame, I'm off of them for the rest of the year. I won't bet any game associated with them. Man, they slaughtered FSU, called all the dogs off with like 24 minutes left in the game, 20 minutes left in the game. It was ridiculous. Now, they're Kyron Williams at running back. He's a freshman. They're 3-0. He's averaging 359 yards, or averaging over 100 yards. He has 359 yards this season, 4 touchdowns. Their defense is only allowing 13 points per game. Now, when we go on the other side of the ball to Louisville, they got blown out last week by Georgia Tech, a very undisciplined, very young Georgia Tech, who's really not that good in my eyes. I'm so disappointed in them. Louisville's defense is a straight liability. They gave up 471 yards last week. They led at halftime 21-14, but their talented offense just stalled. I'm off them until they can show me a full game. I mean, this defense is what allowed them to lose to Pitt. It's what's allowed them to get the score run up on them against Miami. Tutu Atwell is amazing, but there's 11 guys on that field. I may regret this next week, but I'm going to go back to what's burned me twice. Give me Notre Dame minus 17.
Yeah, you keep going to that well. Hopefully you don't go one too many times. I hope they pull
this
it out.
This will be the last if they don't win.
Yeah.
I just need my money back, Notre Dame.
Yeah, come on, guys. All right. I hate Notre Dame, so I probably would never bet Notre Dame. I just despise everything that they are. So good pick, but I'm going to stay away from those games. And I'm going to end my card with UCF at Memphis. UCF is a 3.5-point favorite. The over-under is 73.5. And this is my second moneyline moneymaker. All right, I'm giving you 2 this week. I'm feeling good.
Wow.
All right, I got a 2. Yeah, I got a 2-week win streak. Why not? Kansas State has made me feel well. Let's go for it. All right, I feel confident with this one. Mainly because this is a different UCF team than we have seen in the past. They're different than their self-proclaimed national championship teams. And their quarterback, Dylan Gabriel, he is not doing bad. He's had 330 and a touchdown last week, but they did lose 34-26 to Tulsa. What is alarming for UCF is their penalties. Last week, 18 penalties for 124 yards. And in their last 2 games, they have had 39 penalties. Now, this game on paper stacks up to be pretty even. I mean, you look at offense, defense, all that stuff, it looks like it's going to be an even game. But when you have 2 close teams like this, what's the big deciding factor? Penalties. Who commits more penalties? And in this case, it's UCF. So you have to give the edge to Memphis in this game. It's expecting to be high scoring, kind of a shootout back and forth. UCF, I mean, they have offensive weapons out there. They have 3 receivers, Marlon Williams, Jalen Robinson, and Jacob Harris. They all have multiple touchdowns. Robinson and Williams both have 388 yards. And the running back, Otis Anderson, is averaging, well, he's leading a running game that averages 197 on the ground. But their defense is a bit of an issue. They've given up 27 a game, 27 points that is, and over 450 yards in total offense. That's 244 through the air, 212 on the ground. And like I said, you put that with the penalties, I think that's pretty much an upset recipe in the making. For Memphis, quarterback Brady White, 56 of 79 on the season with 576 and 7 touchdowns, so he can sling it. He's a good quarterback. He also has that reliable tight end target in Sean Dukes, who has 222 yards and 3 TDs on the season, and a running game that's averaging 213 yards on the ground behind Rodriguez Clark, who has 203 on 36 attempts. It's a very well matched up game. On paper, you could blind study, pick A or B, and it's a pick 'em on paper. But when you throw in the penalties, I just don't see how a team with that many penalties can be favored in this spot, and I don't see how they can win a game. Throw that in with Memphis playing at home and the home team being 12-1 against the spread in the last 13. Gladly, I will take Memphis plus the points, and also let's make them the second money line moneymaker of the week at plus 150, and we're going to improve that to 5-1 on the season.
I like that.
So Memphis plus 3.5 and the money line at plus 150 is what I got it at now.
Nice. Also, some breaking news. Conor McGregor has verbally accepted a fight on January 23rd against Dustin Poirier. I know this is a college football podcast, but I'm a big UFC fan. Conor McGregor just tweeted he accepts. They're going to try to have it in the Cowboys Stadium, so hopefully that's something to look forward to.
No, it's with UFC, right? I know he was talking about doing like all the charity stuff.
Yeah, no, Dana White would never let that happen.
Yeah.
All right, so for my last pick, I'm going to head on down to Arkansas. I got Ole Miss laying 2.5 points. That's another road favorite here. We all watched the Alabama-Ole Miss game. Kiffin reuniting with Saban last week. And one thing that it did prove is that Ole Miss's defense is atrocious. If you've been listening to other gambling podcasts or just been updated in the college football world this week, the box score for that Ole Miss game showed that they only stopped 41 potential yards of offense against Alabama last week. So Alabama, if you took all the yardage from where they started each drive, they only did not gain 41 possible yards. I mean, that is completely embarrassing. And on the other side of the ball with Arkansas, Felipe Franks is playing pretty well. He's coming off a tough loss to Auburn, so I think morale might be very low around Arkansas this week. They got robbed last week. I mean, a terrible call is the reason they won. And my take on this game is actually really simple. Ole Miss has no defense. This game will be a shootout, but we know who Felipe Franks is. Matt Corral, the Ole Miss quarterback, has over 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns and 1 interception through 3 games. That's nothing compared to what, or that's way more than anything Felipe Franks will be able to do. It's simple. This will be a shootout. Ole Miss will be able to outlast Arkansas. I don't think this game is decided by 3 points. I think it's closer to 7-14. Give me Ole Miss minus 2.5 on the road.
Minus 2.5. All right. Well, there it is, man. We covered 12 different games this week and gave out a bunch of picks. So, however you're feeling out there, if you're looking for a few money lines, we got it for you. If you're looking for some Friday night plays, we got it for you. We got a little bit of everything.
We do.
Just trying to touch everybody here, trying to get everything out. So there it is. Let's recap.
All right.
I'll recap mine first. I see over there still trying to figure yours out. So I got Clemson minus 27, Tennessee minus 6, Temple minus 10, UNC minus 13.5, Navy plus 1, Memphis plus 3.5, and then 2 moneyline money makers for you this week with Navy. I got them at plus 115. You could probably bump that up a little bit. And Memphis plus 150. We're gonna push that moneyline money maker to 5-1 this week. Feeling good.
I like it. All right, Big Country Week 7 official card. I got SMU -7. I got BYU -5. I got South Carolina +3. UAB -13.5. Notre Dame -17. And Ole Miss -2.5.
Very good. Man, full card. I love it.
Yes.
So we'll be starting some football here on Friday, watching that. And then, in other news, we got big game this weekend with the Brownies.
And the Steelers. I'm interested to see what goes on with that game. Both teams are 3-1. Baker's been playing out of his mind this year compared to last year, especially. And, actually, no, I'd take that back. The Steelers are 4-0 right now?
Steelers are 4-0 because they missed the one game.
But I think they're combined. The teams that they've played have a combined 1 win. So they'll actually be tested this week. I'm a Steeler fan. Dan is obviously a pretty big Browns fan. We have a little bet on the side, but we'll see how that game goes on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. And we got Tony Romo.
Yes, Tony Romo is calling that game, which makes the game 10 times better. So,
all right,
tune into that. Tune into the games. Hopefully, between us, we go 12-0 for you this week. Remember to like, subscribe, follow us on Twitter at CF Payoff Pod, and find our YouTube page at College Football Payoff.
Yeah, like you said, like, subscribe, share the video with whoever you got.
Support the show. Support us.
Yeah, follow me at Accountant Bets.
Follow me at Big Country Bets.
All right, and we'll continue to keep giving out winners, or in Big Country's case, you can fade them.
Fade me.
And find the winners there. So, all right, well, for Big Country, I'm Dan. Have a great weekend and happy betting.